Passover. Wow, it's so much of a holiday. And I hope it was a really, really good one for you. There's so many great things about the whole concept of liberation and going from a narrow place to freedom. I mean, tell me, isn't that like the only thing you've been thinking about for the last month? It's going from a narrow place to freedom. There's something about Passover where we don't eat bread, right? We only eat matzah, and you might really like matzah the first time you have it. And there's nothing wrong with matzah brie, and there's nothing wrong with matzah pizza, and there's nothing wrong with we even I don't know how she did it, but Mindy made really good matzah pancakes. Go figure. I guess if you put enough yogurt and fruit and everything else on it, it could taste pretty good. Um, But Passover is a time where we do without some things. We don't eat just anything we want to. We purposefully go without bread and oats and rye and spelt and barley. And we do it because it helps us better appreciate freedom. It helps us say, wow, we're really connecting with slaves, that was really about the only thing they had to eat was that matzah. It helps us better understand freedom. And we voluntarily choose to do what God certainly more than recommends about this week, to not eat bread. And it makes our lives a little bit holier. There's in this week's Torah portion, it talks about a few different things, including a section about what foods we're able to eat and which ones we shouldn't. And it really talks about animals in particular. And it says essentially that of all of the things that are in the sea, you can eat the things that have fins and scales. So like lobsters don't have fins and scales, and clams don't have fins and scales. But fish, the regular fish type stuff you can have. Of the birds, it spells out specifically which birds. You can't really have scavenger birds like hawks or buzzards or eagles, but chickens and turkeys, that's fine. And when it comes, but when it comes to bigger animals like mammals, it has to have a cloven hoof like this, and like a couple of big toes kind of thing, not one toe like a horse has, but like a couple, and it has to chew its cud. So it's got to be a vegetarian animal that has a certain digestive quality to it. Why? Why? I mean, it really has nothing to do with health. Sometimes people say, well, yeah, there's diseases in shellfish at different times, or there was a plague that was passed through pig and through pork, and we Jews didn't have it, and so we survived it. It's really not. It's not having to do with health, because right now, pork isn't unhealthy. It's not any. It's not any unhealthier than eating beef. We just don't do it because God says, if you want to be holy, this is what you do. Don't eat just anything. It says, I am holy and you shall be holy too. And following these eating guidelines, that's a big part of it. I mean, you can look at it and say, I guess there's something to it. If we just ate anything we wanted to whenever we wanted to eat it, imagine what we'd look like. Why not have an ice cream soda every day? Or, why not have cake and fat things and salty things and sweet things? But we learn what's healthful, and it makes our lives better. We also learn what is holy, and that makes our lives better as well. Nowadays, boy, the food that we eat, I don't know if you've developed a greater appreciation of the food, because it just takes so much to get to us. And I mean, I know some people who really just about the only food they eat, they go around to farm stands because they don't want to interact with anybody. And they get eggs and they get whatever vegetables there are. And they've been eating out of their cupboards for a while and supplementing it with, you know, one place has milk or dairy products, they can go and pick it up. Um, but boy, you know, when you eat what you got, that's a whole different way. These last few weeks, we appreciate more the food that we have. And I imagine that we're wasting a whole lot less than we ever did. And the food, by the time it gets to us, it's got to go through so many different things. Like there are meat processing plants that are closing down, and who knows what's going to happen to our meat supply. There are this produce that's being plowed under because there's not people to harvest it or to get it. There's millions of gallons of milk that they have to milk the cow for the cow's health, but there's no one who's buying it. They can't get it to people and get it refrigerated and get it out. It makes us really cherish the food that we have. This is, I would say, for most people in this world, this is the greatest hardship that they have had to bear. I'd say for most people in the world, and I mean, I'm just guessing, that this is the greatest hardship they've had to bear is this last month or so. Being alone and being fearful. And we're here to try to save lives, to save our own life and to not spread it to other people, to save lives so that we're not going out and, you know, we don't want to be carriers. Many people can get the disease and not have any symptoms, not feel any illness at all, but inflict it on people for whom it could be really fatal, really, really dangerous to others. And so we're staying home out of a fear. This is probably, for many people, the closest that we're going to get. I mean, I hope it's the closest we're going to get to understanding what it was like to be hiding out in Nazi-controlled countries. These days, Yom HaShoah is just right around the corner. And the Holocaust was really, really different from right now. It was very, very different from right now. But just like horseradish is nothing like slavery, but it gives you a taste of it. It helps you to understand it a little bit. This is nothing like what Anne Frank had to do in the Holocaust and her family. This is nothing like that, but it gives us a taste of what it might be like. Now, we're choosing voluntarily. We're scared, but we're choosing voluntarily to do this. Was this controlled by leaders? Well, you know, good leaders in countries that have really good leaders, there's been less of an epidemic. It just has been that way. Where the people, so it has something to do, this has something to do with how we as a nation have responded. It's not like Nazi Germany, where it was entirely caused by the government, the hatred. And we lost a third of our people, a third of our people. Now, there are some lessons that we can get from the Holocaust that I think are really applicable to today. One of them is the people that came out of the Holocaust. Some of them had unbelievable post-traumatic stress. And from the survivors, the guilt that they felt, why did I survive when, you know, my mother didn't, or my kid brother, or this person who was so kind and so wonderful and stood up and some of the best people, best of our people didn't make it, and they feel guilty for that. And some people just, they had to do things that they really regretted their whole lives. And some Holocaust survivors, there was rampant alcoholism afterwards among among survivors of the Holocaust, suicides among survivors of the Holocaust. Those were people who their lives sort of stopped at that moment. On the other hand, there are some people who survived the Holocaust who went on to be the real shapers, the molders of the second half of the 20th century. People went on to found, the Holocaust survivors, to make incredible strides in medicine, to found Silicon Valley, to bring all kinds of prosperity where no one else had thought to do it. How can that be that this horrific event that killed so many of our people can be interpreted in two different ways? I think there's a lesson for us. Some people looked at the Holocaust and couldn't see beyond it, and that is the story of their life. Other people who lived through the Holocaust looked at it as the story of their life, but only the first chapter of their life, or only the prelude of the story of their life. And they found a way to say, I'm going to build on this. I'm going to learn from this and delve more into life. I'm going to go into it with a renewed motivation and a vigor and a strength and a real purpose, because I've seen how bad it can be, and I've seen how people can be so helpful. That's what we ought to do. We ought to learn from the lessons of the Holocaust. This is just one chapter of our life, but how can it make the next chapter of our life much better? What can we learn from this? I mean, are you going to learn to always cherish your food? Are you going to learn that you see someone and you can give them a hug and you just hold on for a little longer because, oh my gosh, it's so wonderful to give someone a hug? Are you going to be a little bit better prepared? Are we going to care about healthcare for others and make sure that they're not left on the edge of a cliff? Are we going to see that it's really someone else's fault that all of this happened, and blame other people or other states or other countries? Or are we going to say, you know, we're really all in this together, and we need to be more together, not be more separated? How are we going to learn? How are we going to learn from the Holocaust? I think that there's some really important lessons there, and we could mess it up bad, or we could take this time and look at all the people and all the heroism of the first responders and the people in the healthcare and the people that do the deliveries, and even the people that chose to stay home and not spread the disease. Real heroes, and applaud them for things like that. That's one of the lessons we can learn from the Holocaust. Tonight would be the night if we were in the temple where everyone would read a name. And they'd take a name and they'd put it in that little hole that we have in the wall. I think next year we'll give everyone 2 names. It's not that we're not reading names, and there are plenty of opportunities for you to read names. Get some names and read them at home and do something to honor someone from the Holocaust. But we'll do it twice next time around. Instead, I want you to take some lessons from the Holocaust and apply them to today. One of the things that we're doing while we're here is to find a way to count. Today is it just started, the 9th day of the Omer. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al sfirat haomer. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, King of the universe, who sanctified us with your commandments and commanded us concerning the counting of the Omer. And the Omer is how we take the lessons of Passover and apply them. We got free, and now we're reaching towards a different level of holiness. Hayom tisha yamim shehem shavua achad u'shnei yamim la'omer. This is, today is 9 days, which is 1 week, and 2 days of the Omer. It's kind of neat to think that it's not just freedom, but we're reaching towards something. We're not just here escaping disease, but we're using this to reach towards something bigger. I personally am so impressed with each and every one of you and the sacrifices that you have all made for the good, not just for the good of yourselves, but for the good of the whole community. It isn't really easy, but you're doing it. I want you to keep your eyes open and notice, what do you appreciate more? What can you learn from this? Write things down. How is your life going to be different? We'll take even these days, and we'll find holiness. We'll turn them into blessing. Maybe we'll even get us a heart of wisdom. With that,